So, just as the soul can be dragged down to the level of the material flesh and gross carnal enjoyment, I mean, it's just men, women, physical body stuff. Similarly, it is possible to uplift the material mind and body to serve the requirements and needs of the transcendental soul. So now the flesh, the physical body and mind are pulling the soul, hey, come on, join our party. Come join our party. Help, work with us. Be an illusion, be in Maya, come with us on the plane of exploitation and help us find some physical pleasure, mental pleasure. So the soul says, okay, take me for a ride. And so then you get taken for a ride, birth after birth after birth after birth, right? Samsara chakra. So that just as a body and dragging the soul down to this plane, the soul can say, well, no, wait a minute. Now you come on you vote for my party. And you work for my party. So then the soul can, by changing direction, can uplift the body and the mind, use the body and mind for a higher purpose. It is possible to uplift the material body and mind to serve the requirements and needs of the transcendental soul. The divine soul should be allowed to predominate, not the flesh nor the material mind. That's what liberation is all about. Now we're bound by the flesh, and the soul is a slave. In order to establish the natural supremacy of the soul, it is necessary to gain spiritual knowledge of our transcendental identity, beyond the present state of ignorance. It's one thing about the articles in Harmonist. Every article, no matter who wrote it, it's all the same language. It's all like really good language. It's high. A lot of it's quite good. This is 1929 English, 1931. In order to establish the natural supremacy of the soul, it is necessary to gain spiritual knowledge of our transcendental identity beyond the present state of ignorance. There is a real plane of positive spiritual activities which appears inconceivable to the conditioned soul. There is a function of the material sexual principle on the spiritual plane. So I remember once when I was in America, there was some book that said, is there sex in heaven or something like that? Or does God have sex or something? You know, there's some funny books that Christians were writing like this. And even that's an issue sometimes. People say, oh, how can God... I remember Rita Ananda Maharaj was giving some lecture. And they were giving a lecture saying, well, actually God also has intimate sexual connections with his transcendental consorts in spiritual bodies and a pure atmosphere of dedication and so many things. And someone raised the question, hey, wait a minute, come on, God can't have sex. In some college lecture, right? And then the argument that Maharaj gave, he said, oh, really, you can be more than God. We're here down on this human level. So, but you can drink and you can dance and you can have your wife and then so many girlfriends and husbands, wife, whatever, and you can enjoy all this man-woman thing. But God can't. Then that means you're more than God. You're a human being. No, because he was saying, no, God, he just sits on a big chair and he has a big stick and he's saying, you're bad, you're good, and he doesn't do anything. He doesn't have any fun. He doesn't do anything. So, because if you hear that God's like that, say, forget it, I'll stay here. I'm having, as it said in Milton, was it Paradise Lost? The devil there, I forget what they call the devil. What was it called? Paradise Lost. Did you read that by Milton? Yeah, in college or high school or something. But there he says the devil is speaking, and there was some dialogue, and then the devil means Maya or Kali personified. He said, "Listen, I would rather rule in hell than serve in heaven. I would rather go to hell, but be the ruler. He says reign. He actually said reign. I'd rather reign in hell than serve in heaven. But our philosophy in Gaudiya Vaishnavism is, I would rather serve in hell than rule in heaven. We don't want to go to Swarga. We don't want to go to Swarga Loka, to heaven, and rule. We want to serve. We'd rather serve than rule. So there is a function of the material sexual principle on the spiritual plane. So this is very intriguing. That function is categorically different from the corresponding physical and mental activities of sex. The appearance of the natural spiritual function should replace the abnormal expression of this activity on the material plane. In other words, we have to find out what is that spiritual function? What is that actual internal demand that can be fulfilled on the spiritual plane, which will enable us to give up all these demands of the physical plane, which is in the most powerful expression is a combination of man and woman. In the real spiritual function, male and female have distinctive natures as complementary personalities. Because we live in this material world, and we're surrounded everywhere in all species we find, especially in our own species of human beings. We have this male and female principle. Purush, what do they say? Stri and Admi, right? Stri and Admi. We find, we can't avoid. In the real spiritual function, male and female have distinctive natures as complementary personalities. But the two are essentially one. So we have male and female, but they complement each other. Even in this world, we say that the man complements the woman. The woman is the better half of man, or whatever. Behind every great man is a great woman, or behind every great woman is a great man, or whatever. All these phrases, these chauvinistic phrases are there. But anyway, you find this polarity, the aggressive and the receptive, the yin and the yang, the positive, negative, the man and the woman, male and female principle. But it's there, so it's also there in the spiritual domain. There's male principle and female principle. And they're complementary, which means, what does complementary mean?
Synergistic to each other.
No, it's simple English. How do you say complementary? Just mean
support each other.
Support. So they support each other.
Match. Like pieces in a puzzle.
Like pieces in a puzzle, they match. But so there's two. They're complementary, but the two are essentially one. So this now you can see how this argument where he's making the connection. The connection, of course, that's also like a pun in one sense. But he's making the connection between the male and female principle based on the material body, male bodies and female bodies, and the whole drive of the male and female principle is for the male and female principle to unite. Unite means mitun, sex enjoyment, sexual union. The male is endeavoring, practically as Freud was saying, all the endeavors in the material world are simply for unification or union, man and woman, sex union. So, but this is actually this principle, male-female principle being two, but essentially they're one because they're meant to be combined. There's union there. There's also union there in the spirit. So this union here of the male and female principle is a perverted reflection of the union of the male and female principle in the spiritual world. And this is what self-realization is all about. It's not denial of our nature, but it's discovering our real transcendental nature, in which we can once and for all transcend this debilitating and limited nature of male and female material principle. The two are essentially one, and that's what, when the man and woman combine, the two bodies become one. This is what union means, in one sense. This supplies the clue to the nature of the wholesome, pure relationship between two personalities. Very interesting statement. What is it? This means, this principle, that in the spiritual world there is a male and a female principle or nature. And they complement each other, they match each other, they work together, but they're essentially one. There's one circle. There's one center of interest. This supplies a clue to the nature of the wholesome, pure relationship between two personalities. As one is the predominator half of the absolute truth. That is the absolute male principle. The other is the predominated half of the absolute truth. That's the absolute female principle. The predominated absolute female has a natural tendency to obey every order of the predominator, absolute male, for fulfilling all his desires. So this is, now he's trying to bring the article from the male and female principles of this world to the male and female principle of the spiritual world, which is embodied or represented by Krishna and Radha, or Lakshmi and Narayan, or whatever, Sita and Ram. One is predominated, one is predominator, but they're complementary to each other, like a flower and its fragrance, or the sun and its light. They need each other, they're inseparable. Not that one is supreme or the other is subordinate. They complement each other. Sri Krishna alone is the Godhead, and Srimati Radharani alone serves Sri Krishna. This is the only absolute truth. Sri Krishna is the ultimate source of all receivers of service, and Sri Radha is the ultimate source of all renderers of service. So everyone who's receiving service, being served in this world or any place, they're actually taking the place of God, of Krishna. And anyone who's rendering service, their mood of giving or rendering service, the source of that mood or giving service is actually Srimati Radharani. Sri Krishna is the only object of all worship and the recipient of all services. However, no individual soul should take service on his own account. This points to the true significance of the scriptural injunction to abstain from all sexual activities if one wants to qualify to eternally serve Krishna on the spiritual plane. Because basically, what keeps one in the material world is a desire for sex relation, man and woman. So when one has that desire, that means he wants to be the receiver of service. He wants to receive service or some pleasure from some other entity. Then he's denying Krishna of that service, where all the service should be offered to him. So until one comes to this conception and conviction, which is self-realization, that everything is for him, everything for the center, and the center is God, then he can't enter the spiritual world. So no individual soul should take service on his own account. So that's why the basic scriptures everywhere, there's either limitation of the sex act, or there's mostly in the more developed scriptures, they say this has to be transcended. One has to actually leave this behind to enter the spiritual world. Because it's an imitation. This activity is an imitation of the pure expression of loving service. So then the imitation is perverted. It's the material expression. The positive platform of serving Radha and Krishna in the spiritual world of bliss can be attained only by those who are completely freed from the disease of mundane sexual desire. The infinite variety of Radha and Krishna's divine pastimes constitutes the only reality. That's an interesting statement. Because we might have to argue with that. Wait a minute, my world is very real. What I'm doing is very real. And my relationships in this world, or my family, friends, and lovers, etc., and what I'm doing, it seems very real and meaningful to me. But there's certainly, it's very limited what we do. We only have a handful of activities we do. We eat, we sleep, we work. As they say, ahara nidra maitun bayam. Eat, sleep, mate, and defend. And we meet a few friends. And sometimes we go out to eat, or sometimes we do 5 or 6 few things. Not much variety. Most people of the world. Their lives are rather circumscribed, boring, and humdrum. But it says here, infinite variety. Radha and Krishna's pastimes are an infinite variety of divine pastimes. This constitutes the only reality. Means this, of course, this is a realization. This is a perception, which is a perfect perception, and this is actually the fact that their pastimes, this is the only reality. Everything else is part of that, or partial expression of that, or imitation of that. Krishna is the absolute predominator, the transcendental autocrat, and Radhika is the absolute predominated. The absolute Godhead, Sri Krishna, is eternally a pair. He's not one. This is pretty good, huh? Sri Krishna is eternally a pair and not one. God is two, not one. I say God is one, right? Sometimes God is one. There's only one God. Christians, Mohammedans, Hindus, Buddhists, there's only one God. Why should we fight? Unity, harmony, United Nations. We say, no, God is two. Sorry about that. I don't mean to blow up the United Nations and blow up the sense of unity, but it's unity and diversity.